Greetings. Welcome to another broadcast of I Have a Testimony. I'm your host, Brother Willie Muhammad.
God came to us to seek and to save that which was lost. He raised a man from among us.
He, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, laid the foundation. What I'm doing is something that comes from him through me, and the thing that he uses in me to do the work is my faith in him and the word that he taught. To produce men and women who wanted to clean up their life and build an independent nation for the glory of God.
The Nation of Islam is filled with many great sisters who are talented, studious, and have powerful testimonies about their journeys to Islam. Today, we have one of those sisters with us. She has a powerful testimony. And while preparing for this interview, I read something about her that brought to mind what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said about the positive impact of hip hop.
I don't think they have the desire to lead. It's something forced upon them because millions of people buy their records. But to change the language of your rap, since the children are listening more to rappers than they listen to their teachers, then the rapper could become their teacher in a much more profound way than the rappers doing. I don't like to knock rappers. I love them. And I see their greatness beyond themselves. And I'm always trying to pull on what I know is in them. But there are forces that don't want to see us change. So how do we stop it? A collective action on our part against the executives.
Assalamu alaikum, dear sister. We have with us as our guest Sister Mecca Islam. How are you?
Assalamu alaikum. I'm good. Peace, brother. I'm fine. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you for accepting our invitation. And I'd like to get straight to the interview. You know, we opened up with the clip of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talking about the power of hip hop. And in the article you sent me, you talked about how people think that hip hop is just, for the most part, just completely negative and has nothing of substance. However, you said that it opened your eyes to the possibility of hope and change because of the environment you were in as a child. So can you explain to the audience how this music was able to open your eyes?
Yes, dear brother. Thank you. And thank you again for having me. I feel honored to be among so many, people that you've interviewed, and I'm thankful and I'm honored, and I am a bit nervous, but I think that, basically with me and hip hop is basically my first love. I started listening to hip hop great, I want to say consciousness in hip hop. So what I was listening to was basically really considered underground. A lot of people weren't listening to it. It wasn't like the pop that was on the radio, like Slick Rick. I was listening to more like Black Watch and X Clan, Public Enemy. And so being very young and hearing, these things and hearing this consciousness, it really sparked an interest in me. And because I was always kind of like a black sheep in my family, it was like I kind of gravitated towards that and gravitated towards the music. And it just really started opening my eyes that there was something totally different than the way of life I was living or the way of life I was in. I can elaborate. I grew up in a culture which was more or less street culture. Both of my parents were afflicted with the drug addiction and alcoholism, and it was like the whole family around me, they were all succumbed to that those addictions. And so we basically lived a street culture. We were around a lot of drug addicts, prostitution, you name it, anything like that. I mean, it wasn't that our parents, just wanted us in this culture. It was just that was the environment that they were living and the way of life that they were living. And I didn't know. Like, I just didn't know that there was another way of life other than what I was living or what I was around. And when I started hearing certain things and hearing the music, it really woke me up. It woke me up to, like, there's something different. There's another way of life. And I'm forever thankful.
And when you look at hip hop, the state of hip hop today, do you also feel that that it still can offer hope and open people's eyes to the possibilities?
I'm having a little trouble hearing you, brother, but I had let's see here. I'm sorry. Brother Willie, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. It's very
Oh,
slow.
it's very
Yes, sir.
slow. I don't know if that may be on my part, but do you think the same is true for hip hop today?
I believe, yes. You have artists like Jay Electronica, you have artists like Royce the 5'9", Jay-Z. You have older artists who are now in their 40s, but they're still carrying the torch. And they've also been an example to, brothers like Mozzie and J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar, where they're really, and even 21 Savage. When you hear the progression of their music, you hear a consciousness in them. Even Kevin Gates, you've seen his development, where they're talking about a certain way of life, but over time they gain a consciousness and they're sharing that with their audience.
Good. And now your name is Mecca Islam, and it has Islam all over it. So can you share with us how you were introduced, how you became introduced and eventually started practicing Islam?
I was introduced to Islam through hip hop, listening. I was a young mother. I was 18 and I was working very long hours. And I was listening to Brand Nubian and an artist who's one of my favorite MCs, Grand Puba. I was listening to his album. I think it came out in 91 or 92 called Real to Real. And he has a song on there called Soul Controller. And he was really talking about the mathematics, and it basically introduced me to the 5% culture, the 5% Nation of Islam. And the 5%ers were very prominent in hip hop. And it really, like, wow, it was very powerful. And I had to know about it. I had to know more about what he was talking about. And at the time, I was doing hip hop events in Denver, and I did know some 5%ers. So to me, it was like, okay, this is interesting. This is something that's very, it sparked my interest. And I also knew when I was doing these hip hop events in Denver, I also rented the equipment from a well-known Muslim brother who was a DJ in Denver, Brother Jeff. Shout out to Brother Jeff and the 5 Points. And I also used FOI as my security at these hip hop events. And so some of the FOI did invite me to the Nation of Islam or to a meeting. And at that time in my life, I felt like the Nation of Islam would be too strict for, my young mind. I thought it would be too hard to live that way of life. So I did gravitate towards the 5%ers. And as I came under the study of the 5%, that was the name that my educator gave me. He gave me a different name, which I didn't necessarily agree with. So I ended up taking on Reina Mecca Islam. Reina is my first name, and Reina means queen in Spanish.
It's interesting. You talked about in something that you sent me this week about how you work to produce unity between the Black and the brown community. And when oftentimes, like our brother Abel spoke today from Chicago, when people hear about Islam, they can consider with a limited view, it's a Black thing. You know what I'm saying? And they see some of our brothers and sisters from other communities that are part of it, they don't feel like Islam is a religion for people of that ancestry. So, have you encountered such thoughts of people being shocked that, oh, you are a Muslim, Mecca Islam? And if so, how have you responded to such? And how do you help them to get a proper understanding?
Brother, can you drop the question in the chat? I'm sorry, I did not hear it. It's kind of very slow on my end. I apologize.
That's no problem. We're gonna work it overcome. Here we go. Here we go. So we're gonna make it happen.
Okay, of Latino descent. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, sir. Okay, so as I had mentioned, I didn't necessarily grow up in a traditional Mexican household.
Mm-hmm.
Our family was more so involved in like street life. And the area I grew up in was an area called Five Points. So it was predominantly Black and brown community. And I always felt more comfortable around Black people, if that, that's just who I grew up around. And even as a child, and even within my own family, I'm not sure if you know, and if the audience has ever heard this, but within some Latino cultures, it could be very racist. So when I was a child, I was called Little Diana Ross, and they were not saying it in a nice way. My great grandmother, when she would go to comb my hair, she would call me mean things. She would hit me in the head with with the brush because my hair was too thick. It was too curly. To her, it was, nappy. They thought it would, she would hit me in the head and call me morena or negrita. And, they would say mean things to me. So as I got older, and even in middle school, a lot of times, you get to that age where you want to be attractive to, the boys or, the girls. And, for the Mexican boys, I wasn't Mexican enough, and the Black boys, I wasn't Black enough. So I always felt like I was not attractive at all. It was I felt difficult. And, but I always felt comfort being around Black people. They always made me feel comfortable. And then as I got older, in high school, there was a unit of study that I'll never forget. The science teacher did a unit of study about dominant and recessive genes. And basically through the whole course of study, we learned that we come from Black people, and it just kind of sparked a light in my brain. I was like, wow, this makes a lot of sense. This is why, I look this way. This is why, some people in my family are a lot darker than other people. And so it kind of made sense. But when I went and talked to other people about it, they thought I was crazy. They were like, nah, we don't come from Black people. Like, no way, But to me, it really resonated and it made a lot of sense to me. I also read, once I read Malcolm X's book, an autobiography, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was part of the Black nation.
Beautiful, beautiful. So we're coming up on our first break, dear sister. So we'll be right back after these short announcements from our sponsors. For those who are watching, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you're inviting other people to come in to hear this interview with our Sister Mecca Islam.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call Digital Edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.
The hashtag Bank Black social media campaign made strides not only in revolutionizing how we bank, but also how we think. The movement inspired thousands of African Americans across the country to transfer or deposit millions of dollars into Black-owned banks. These are banks that will invest in urban communities, employ African Americans, support Black businesses, and inspire Black home ownership. This is a very proud moment for our culture as we are taking small, but significant, steps towards building Black power through Black wealth.
Share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
So we're back, brothers and sisters. Thank you all for tuning in with this interview with our sister Mecca Islam. And so as we were here, the next question I want to ask you is, as I prepared for this interview, I browsed through your social media page, and one thing that I constantly saw, that there were pictures of you with your children, so I can tell that parenthood is very important to you. What have been some of the most profound lessons you've learned as a mother? You're muted, dear sister. You're muted. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me, brother?
Yeah, so what were you saying? What's some of your profound lessons that you've learned as being a mother?
My children I'm like totally in love with my children. Having my children saved my life. Having my first child, I was 17 years old, and I was still living in the streets, living that, street life, doing a lot of things I should not have been doing, being very reckless with my life. And when I had my first son at 17, I was still out there, but I knew that I had to, gradually make a change and strive for better. And so I'm in awe of my children. My children are everything to me. And I think that they inspire me to be better. I have my oldest child who, I think all of us kind of know, you're always harder on your children. And my oldest 3 children are boys. And I was always kind of hard on them and a little, I don't want to say aggressive, but, when you're an old school parent, you kind of, a little heavy handed with the discipline and whatnot. But my boys give me a lot of grace. My sons give me a lot of grace, and they always tell me you're a good mom. However, I do have my youngest daughter who is, she's 17, she's gonna be 18 this year. And she has definitely been a shining light, when she was born, when she was an infant, she was only a few months old, and they thought she had a rare form of eye cancer. And it was very, I don't want to say traumatizing, but it really makes you, search and dig deep within to, strive to understand, why this is happening. And she has always brought me great, the eyes are, to see, and to see means to understand. So when we went through that with her, it just made me realize that I need to have a better understanding with things and to slow down and not be so quick to react. And with her, she has just always been a fighter. She overcame that affliction. It wasn't eye cancer. It was just, something that she had going on with her eye. But she had always been a feisty child. When she was around 2 or 3, I remember snatching her up. You know how we do when children are not behaving, out and about. And I went and I snatched her up and I said, "Look, little girl, it's my way or the highway." And she, stood there steadfast and said, "The highway." And I realized that she was a different type of child. So, my other children, I could, put them in the, if I had to spank them, I'd spank them and, put hands on them and, set them, and they would sit down. I say, "Be quiet, don't say anything." With her, as she was a child and the baby, she would say, "Why can't I speak? I have something to say." Or if I go to, spank her or, discipline her, she'd kind of, pull away from me and say, no, that's inappropriate. I'll just sit in timeout. I'll think about what I did. And this is a young child, 5 and 6 years old. So she has actually really grown me as a parent and as a woman and a mother, because she is, makes me think. And she was like, well, why are you reacting this way? Well, why do you behave this way? And I'm like, you are a child. Do not tell me. But she actually really has opened my eyes to certain things on my parenting. And the way that I interact with her, we have a very close bond. And I have a close bond with all my children. But the way I interact with her has shown me how to engage better with my other children. And it's a beautiful thing. Our children actually really grow us. They really do.
That is true. And as we're talking about children, you sent some pictures for our production team to use during this interview at our request. And out of all of the ones that you sent, there was one that you had with you and your sons at the Million Family March. And you said that this is one of your favorite photographs of you and your sons. Can you explain why this image with you and your sons at the Million Family March just means so much?
Yes, sir. That picture, I believe the Million Family March was in 2000, if I'm not mistaken. And that is a really beautiful picture to me, because I didn't actually, like I had mentioned, my foundation in Islam and knowledge of self is the 5% Nation. And being a 5%er was very, it's always been something I'm very proud of. It's given me a strong foundation in Islam and my lessons. And when I decided to join the Nation of Islam, I did so in the late 90s, around 98, I believe. And it was because there was a lack of sisterhood. I didn't have many sisters in Denver, Colorado that were 5%ers. And I noticed, because of the fact that I was around so many of the gods and so many of the brothers, I took on that demeanor. I was very fiery in my approach and how I spoke to people. And I realized that I wanted to be more around sisters and women, and I needed that in my life. And so I decided to join the Nation of Islam. And the brother at the time, who was my educator, was my husband. He told me, he said, if you join the Nation of Islam, word is bond. You need to make sure you go through that process. It's very important to go through that process and stick with it. So I did. And that picture to me is so special, because of the fact that I was just newly joined the Nation of Islam. I got registered, I believe, in 99. And that was my first garment. It's from Fashan, from Mother Tainetta Muhammad's line. And I was just so happy to have that. And so that represented my growth and my evolution and moving forward as a woman. And also kind of like growing up a little bit. But that picture also, you see my sons with their T-shirts with the universal flag, the flag with from the 5%ers. And I just love that picture. And I love it because it's with my 3 sons.
So you mentioned about how, the sisterhood that you were looking for. So I'm gonna type this into stuff. Can you talk about the sisterhood you found when you joined? I'm gonna type it. Let me send it. Can you talk about the sisterhood you found when you joined the ranks?
When I joined the Nation of Islam,
yeah,
the way I was taught, because the brother that taught me, his foundation was also the Nation of Islam, but very young. And so the way he taught me was the beauty of Master Fard Muhammad and Allah coming in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, and the beauty of the messenger and everything that the messenger taught. And so I'm not even I would say most 5%ers don't get that history and that love. I was taught highly regarded love for Master Fard Muhammad and the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And, I was taught that the father, Brother Clarence 13X, took the teachings to the streets, to the youth of New York City, and for that purpose, so that he could directly teach the youth. He had his own mission. And so the way I was taught was I had a high regard for the brothers and sisters in the Nation of Islam. I saw them as family. So when I went into the mosque, I already had knowledge of self. You know, I knew my lessons. I had already read Message to the Black Man. I was there because I wanted to, you know, learn about the MGT teachings. I wanted to learn about, you know, I thought there was going to be some secret MGT lessons. I already knew my lessons, you know, 120. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get the MGT lessons. That's what I need to know. I thought it was going to be like this little secret to unlock, you know, my ways and actions. And I was treated very well by the brothers and sisters in the mosque. And it also didn't hurt that I had a business there in Denver. I was co-owner of a hip hop culture shop. It was called Divine Essence, and we sold all the Messenger's books there. We were advocates of the Messenger's teachings. So not only were we promoting hip hop and doing hip hop events for the youth in Denver, we also were promoting knowledge of self and, you know, people getting knowledge. So a lot of the brothers and sisters from the mosque already knew me from the shop and knew, you know, my works doing events and whatnot in Denver. And so I was treated very, very well. I was given a post immediately because since, you know, I knew so much and, you know, they kind of were like, okay, all right. You know, I progressed through my processing class very fast. And it was an honor and a blessing. And I was just treated very well by the brothers and sisters and just treated like family.
Thank you for sharing that. And we're coming up on our next break. So we're going to pause to hear some more announcements from our sponsors, and we'll be back to hear more of this dynamic interview with our Sister Mecca Islam. Peace.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App, NNV News.
AsiaticMinds.com. Online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness, as well as the greatness of our people. And upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. 2022 through 23 enrollment waiting list open now. Visit AsiaticMinds.com.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Thank you for tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Willie Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
So we're back, brothers and sisters, to continue our interview with our Sister Mecca Islam. You know, now I'd like to transition this part of the show so we can hear about your memories and your interactions with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And to help us do so, we will display some pictures on the screen where we would like for you to share with us this, you know, your memories of this moment, how it came about, your takeaways from your interaction with the minister. So here's the first photograph. So tell us about the context of this picture, how it happened, what were some of the takeaways and the impact on you?
Yes, sir. Words can't even express how I felt in that moment to just be in the minister's presence. The picture, or the reason I was able to have an audience with the minister is also in the picture is the minister's granddaughter, Queen Yanajdaha Lone Wolf, who is a dear, dear sister of mine and a very close comrade, and I'm considered just a very dear sister, very close, good friend. And I was doing work with her. I was invited by her and Brother Minister Abel to help and assist with the Justice or Else. And that was in '94 that, I actually had the opportunity to bring Brother Abel out. Myself and another sister brought him out to speak in Los Angeles. And this was in 2014. And it was the year before the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March. And he had mentioned to me, the work that he had done with Sister Yanajdaha. And so I was invited by both Brother Abel Muhammad and Queen Yanajdaha to assist them for Justice or Else, and to be able to just do some organizing. That's what I do on my end, is I do a lot of strategic planning and organizing. And that's what we were able to do for Justice or Else, was to bring tribes from all over the country and tribal leaders and dignitaries to Justice or Else for the grand entrance. And that picture was just, I was able to Yanajdaha host at Savior's Days a lot of dignitaries and a lot of celebrities. And so along the line, when we, walk the celebrities in to let them know what to expect when meeting the minister, I was also able to go in and meet the minister. That was my second time meeting him. That picture is my second time meeting him. And the minister to me is not someone you stand over. And so as soon as I was in his presence, I wanted to kneel down and show my respect, and just to let him know what an honor and a privilege it is to just even be in his presence. And I even get emotional just thinking about it, because it was just very, very powerful. The moment you're in his presence, you just want to give him the utmost respect and love. And I did tell him that I loved him, and I was very thankful for every single sacrifice that he's ever made.
What do you remember? Anything that he shared with you and that pic? Type it. Second through all.
Is there another picture? Oh,
yeah. Wait.
Let me see. He just said thank you, and he said I love you too. What he would just say to people. He told me he was thankful. And Yanajdaha, in that same picture, she was letting him know that I was there with her and I was assisting her to make the, Justice or Else successful. And in that, picture, he was just, expressing his thanks. And it's very quick. Anyone who's ever had an audience with the minister, you're kind of in a line of people and the guests are going through. And so I just remember it was almost like the entire world filled with light, I just, I think I cried a little bit. I was just so thankful. And I just know he said, you're welcome and thank you for all you do. It was very brief, and it was, he was just, of course, humble and beautiful as he always is.
Yes. And now we're going to show this second pic, which I believe this was the first time that you met him. So the same thing, can you explain this pic?
Yes, sir. This picture was at it was a conference, I believe, that was in Atlanta, maybe in 2016 or 2017. And again, Yanajdaha was hosting a number of dignitaries and celebrities. And so when we took them back, there were some dignitaries that it came in from Justice Orals that didn't get to meet the minister the previous time. So this picture was us bringing them in to meet the minister. And again, like I said, I will never feel comfortable standing over the minister. You know, I feel like as him being our elder, and I just wanted to kneel down and, you know, as respect. And again, I told him, thank you for everything that he does. And he said, I remember you. Because this was, you know, I had walked in with Yanaj Daha, and we held hands, and he just, you know, said thank you as I, you know, thanked him. And it was very brief, but it was I do remember him saying, I remember you.
Wow, beautiful. And so, you know, this next question that we want to ask, the title of this show is I Have a Testimony. So if you had to testify before the world about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, you know, what would you testify about him? Qualities or anything?
First and foremost, I would, you know, of course, his record is unblemished. He has been teaching and striving for over 60 years to, you know, teach original people, not just in North America, but abroad. And I would just testify at his extreme love for Black and brown people, for original people, his grace, his dignity, his overwhelming compassion for not only Black and brown people, but for all of humanity. I would also mention just his sacrifice. He and his family have sacrificed so much for the upliftment of Black and brown people. I'm in awe. There are no words that even exist that I can say that can express my extreme gratitude for all he's done, but also not just for, you know, us here in North America, but abroad, and his sacrifice. I mean, it's just, his sacrifice is overwhelming. His compassion, his humility, his dignity, his love, it's just overwhelming. It's such a beauty to see. And I'm so thankful that I am in this time where I'm able to see everything. And I mean, even he was doing things way before I was even born, and I'm still here in this time to be able to bear witness to his good works and everything that he's done for us. And also the rebuild of the Nation of Islam. The rebuilding of the Nation of Islam is powerful. And the fact that he's been able to spearhead that and do that in this time is just amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Beautiful. So before we go to our next break, this is the question I want to ask. You know, what has been some of the most profound lessons you have learned during your journey and growth in Islam?
Lessons.
Just,
okay. I think that, you know, the minister, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, is the example of the lessons that we can implement in our life, the absolute grace, you know. And I think that that's a major lesson that I've learned in my life, is to give each other grace, to love each other, to listen to each other, to truly strive for understanding. Our people are afflicted. We are truly afflicted by everything that we have gone through, our descendants have gone through here in North America since the presence of Caucasian people. And we have to know that it doesn't happen overnight. Our people are severely damaged by the atrocities that were put on us. And it's very important that we understand that that damage was not just mental and physical. You know, of course, there was the physical damage, but it was also mental, and also those damages, that trauma is in our DNA. And we have to understand that it's one of the biggest lessons I learned is we have to really love each other and love our people. and truly strive to give each other grace and understanding, and just strive to be there for each other. I mean, I think it's important we reach out to each other, we hear each other, and just that, how important that is. It's very important. And I think the minister does that because he is so how do I say, just gives us grace, very humble. And I think we should be like that with each other.
Beautiful, beautiful. So we're coming up on our last break. And for those who are watching, make sure you're hitting the like button so we can get more people to actually see this come across their timeline. And we'll be back with our sister, Mecca Islam, to close out on this interview. Thank you.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Individually, we are poor when you compare us.
AsiaticMinds.com. Online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness, as well as the greatness of our people. And upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. 2022 through 23 enrollment waiting list open now. Visit AsiaticMinds.com.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Willie Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
And so we're back, brothers and sisters, to complete the final portion of our interview with our sister, Mecca Islam. You know, in your article, you talked about, you said, quote, movies like Beautiful Boy, Ben is Back, The Requiem for the Dream, and Less Than Zero have opened the eyes of the upper and middle classes to these realities, talking about the reality of the damaging impact of drugs, right? So I haven't seen any of those movies, and it made me think about like what J. Cole talked about in one of his rhymes. So can you explain how those movies have done so?
The article I sent you is actually interesting because it was written for my job. I work in corporate America. I work in an international engineering firm where we have offices in close to 70 countries, and it is 90%, 95%. The leadership is Caucasian, and so there is very little, representation in that environment as far as with Black and brown people. And so I wrote that. I was asked to write it for their newsletter, a DNI, EDNI newsletter, which means equality, diversity, and inclusion. Anyway, I list those movies because now with what's happening in white America with the opioid crisis, addiction is no longer criminalized. Addiction now, they're getting help, treatment, and therapy for their addictions. Whereas, when I was a kid growing up in the 80s and coming out of the 70s, my parents were heavy. They were heavy drug addicts and went in and out of prison. And if they would have been able to be given the opportunity for treatment programs and therapy, I believe that, it would have been different for them. And so I know my parents are not alone in that. Our people were severely afflicted by, the drugs that were pumped into our communities in the 60s, 70s. And then when the crack era hit in the 80s, it was generations of, thousands, if not millions of families that were afflicted by addiction and drug use. And we did not get that treatment. It was criminalized. Children were put in foster care. The foster care system is terrible. Horrific things happen. They're taken away from their families and their children. Parents and grandparents. I mean, even my grandmother did time. So not only were my parents in and out of prison, but my grandmother also went into prison. So I cite those movies because when white people now see these films that are being made about addiction, it turns their hearts, and they're able to, have more of an understanding and more compassion for addiction and for people that are struggling. And I really think that, of course, we can't go back in time. We could only move forward. But that same treatment should have been given to our people, and our people would have had a better chance. And so that was what was behind that article and, me citing those movies.
Good. And we're coming up on, this is another question just popped in my mind, but I asked you this question. In closing, was there anything you wanted to share that you did not get a chance to share during this interview? If so, feel free to do so now.
What else would I like to share? When you mentioned about my Latino background or my, Mexican background, I do want our brothers and sisters to know, for me, it was easy to accept the teachings. I was truly lost in the streets, doing things I should not have been doing and being around things I should not have been. And the moment I read Message to the Black Man and I read it for myself and I accepted it, it was like a light came on, and I no longer felt that feeling of being lost. And it was a true blessing. But it didn't happen overnight. Like, I did not just become a person overnight who was not afflicted by things that I had come up in. My sobriety was very important to me, but having Islam and coming into the teachings, it made it, that is not part of our culture. So it was just something I didn't do. And it gave me the strength to persevere. And, within some Latino communities based on the coast, if you're on the East Coast and you're Puerto Rican or Cuban or Dominican, it's a lot easier for you to accept that you're of African descent, or you have, that you're Black. Whereas on the West Coast, and it's a totally different environment and it's a totally different culture. So when I was growing up, it was kind of, people did not want to accept that. What we have to understand as quote unquote Latino people is that nationality and ethnicity are two totally different things. And nationality is just a border. It's just something that was drawn, and that wasn't drawn by us. That was drawn by white people when they came over and colonized us. So it's really important to understand that we have a linkage and lineage to Africa, and we have to accept that and understand it. And I tell people all the time, 75% of the slave trade went to Mexico and South America. And that's a large number. And even when you're in the southern part of Mexico, you see the African presence is very real. And a lot of within Latino culture and even in their societies is placed a caste system. And the darker you are, the lower in the society you are, the lower you are in your family, the worse off you're treated. But the lighter you are, you're treated better. And we have to know where that comes from. And whenever I'm around Latino people and I'm given the opportunity to speak on those things, I do, because I think it's very important for us to understand that nationality should not dignify, or not dignify, but not designate who we are. And it's funny because people have such a hard time accepting their Blackness, but they'll be quick to accept being white. And I'll never understand that. Like that, you could be the darkest Dominican and they're adamant that they're not Black. You could be, the darkest Honduran and they're adamant that they're not Black. And that comes from not what they see, but what they were taught by their society and the colonization process that happened. We were really, truly taught to hate ourselves. And when we can come out of that and we can truly recognize who we are and our origin in this world, it will be better off as a people. And when we can unify the Black and brown people, we will be better off as a people. And I believe that it's really important for us to, something I live by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is accept your own and be yourself. And we have to do that. It's really time, and it's imperative that we do that.
And this is one more question. This is the last one. So you talked about the lessons quite a bit. Can you share with the viewing audience some of the methods you use to learn and study the lessons, and share some words about their importance?
Well, I'm an old school 5%er. So we, with the lessons, it's really important to study them. And I was taught several different ways, going one by one, lesson by lesson, looking up any words you don't know, and even words you do know, looking them up in the dictionary, and also looking up the other meanings and other words in the thesaurus, just to make sure you understand the words. And I was taught, memorization of the lessons. You write them 7 times, say them 7 times, write them again. Also within the 5%, when you have a close brother or sister and you're learning and studying with, you go through the lessons together, you do the question and answer. So I'm a little dusty on my lessons right now. But I think it's very important. I mean, when you're younger and you're new to Islam, it's important to, anyone who I've ever been approached to, learn and study. That's always what I always tell them is the first thing to do is to read Message to the Black Man by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's like the basic, fasting and just to learn and study. I think that it's important, but the study part isn't just reading it and being able to memorize it. It's also really key to practice what you are learning and striving in little ways. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight, believe me. When I was 15 or 16, some of the stuff I was doing, I would have never thought in my life that I could say I was clean and sober for 25 years or, I didn't do drugs or, sell drugs or anything like that. I mean, it happens over time. And inshallah, whoever would like to learn about Islam, they have the opportunity to do so. Beautiful. But it's not easy. It's not easy at all. It's a sacrifice.
That's how as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, that everything of value has a difficult factor attached to it. So that's it. We thank you, dear sister. We thank you for your time, and we're going to close out. I thank you, Brother Musa, my producer. Thanks you as well. We thoroughly enjoyed this interview, and may Allah continue to bless you and your family.
Thank you, brother. Peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.